2015. It required painstaking and prolonged engagements with the Commission and both the executive, within the Commission and between the executive and the legislative arms of government for us to make some headway. And given that practically all activities for the elections depended on funds, printing of ballot papers, the result sheets, to hiring of election staff and transport providers, the Commission could not meet many of its targets in preparing for the 2019 general elections. So learning from this experience, what have we been doing to make sure that 2023 is better than 2019? The first point to make is election planning. And learning from the 2019 general election, a great deal of forward planning and engagements have been undertaken, and many aspects of our preparations attest to that. First, we concluded the new 4-year strategic plan and strategic program of action, as well as the 2023 election project plan, over 18 months prior to the date set for the election. So these planning tools were ready 18 months ahead of the elections, which gave us a very good start. Then the Electoral Act. Elections are essentially anchored in law, and unlike the case with the 2019 general election, new Electoral Act was signed into law on Friday, 25th February 2022, exactly 1 year ahead of the general election, giving time for both the Commission and all stakeholders to fully acquaint themselves with the challenges in their responsibilities and functions. As an affirmation of our readiness for the general election, the Commission released a timetable and schedule of activities the following day after the law was assented to. It went into force after it was assented to by the President. The following day, on Saturday, 26 February 2022, the Commission released the timetable and schedule of activities. It contains 14 activities to be implemented from the publication of notice of poll to election day. And I'm happy to say that the Commission has accomplished so far 11 out of the 14 activities for the election, and all of them on schedule. So there are only 3 activities outstanding. The new law contains some very important changes that hold the potentials for improving the quality of Nigeria's election. I've identified 10 most important provisions in the new law, but time will not permit me to go through all the 10. But they are all listed in the lecture, which, as I said, will be made available immediately after today's session. Related to the Electoral Act are the regulations and guidelines. The Commission has powers under the law to come up with regulations and guidelines to govern the conduct of election, drawing from the provisions of the Constitution and the Electoral Act. The Constitution cannot be expected to say everything. So members of the National Assembly, drawing from their powers under the Constitution, make subsidiary legislation. And then, in turn, even members of the National Assembly, through subsidiary legislation, cannot say everything about the conduct of elections. And in turn, they donated part of their powers to the Commission to make regulations and guidelines. Together, the 3 instruments are called the Electoral Legal Framework. So very quickly, for want of time, what have we been doing about perhaps the most important foundation for democratic elections, the registration of voters? You can't have a credible elections without credible register of voters. That is critical. Now, this has been a major component of our preparations for the election. The law requires the Commission to conduct voter registration on a continuous basis. However, the law also provides dates for suspension of the process to prepare for general election. Consequently, continuous voter registration, as we call it in Nigeria, or the CVR, was suspended on the 31st of July 2022 to resume after the general election. And I'm sure you must have heard about the provision of the law as to whether it is 90 days or not later than 90 days. I would leave it at that. If we have time, we can discuss it. There are some words used by the legal draftsmen that give the commission flexibility. Sometimes it's not later than, sometimes it's not earlier than, sometimes it's on a particular date. But if there is time, we can take this up during discussion. The CVR, I said, was suspended on the 31st of July, and in 1 year, from the 21st of June to the 31st of July, 12.2 million new voters were registered, out of which 9.5 million were validated after a thorough cleaning up of the data. We believe that the enthusiasm, especially among young people, was partly responsible for this surge, but they're also motivated, we believe, by the innovation of online pre-registration introduced by the Commission. For the first time, we introduced the online pre-registration of voters, where citizens can commence the process online, but they have to go to the physical or designated registration centers to conclude the process. This enabled intended registrants to commence the process online from a dedicated portal, book an appointment on the same portal, and finally appear in person at an INEC office to have their biometrics taken. The cleanup of the register was painstakingly conducted by the Commission because the automated biometric identification system, the ABIS, before now the Commission used the AFIS, the fingerprint identification system. But this time around we use the ABIS, meaning both fingerprint and facial. And that is what we're also using to accredit voters on election day. And all these innovations were all the work of INEC's own engineers in-house in the Commission. The machines may have been fabricated outside the country, but the design of the machines were done by our own engineers in-house. In fact, one of them said that they are going to introduce a new biometric using body odor. I said, please, not yet. Let's make haste slowly. But when he explained it to me, it sounded logical. He said, don't laugh, Chairman, because I said body odor is also a biometric. He said, how does your dog recognize you? It's from your body odor. And that's why if another person walks to the house, it barks. When you move into the house, it wags its tail because it recognizes your body odor. I said, but for elections, let's wait, not now. So we use the ABIS to clean up the register. But also, there is something that is perhaps peculiarly Nigerian. Who owns the register of voters? It's the people of Nigeria. The law says that when we finish registering new voters, we should add them to the existing register of voters, meaning that the 9.5 million that we cleaned up after the last CVR should be added to the 84 million registered voters for the 2019 general election, and then subjected to scrutiny, claims, and objections by Nigerians. And this requires the printing of hard copies of the register and displaying same in 8,809 wards and 774 local government areas. For that alone, we printed over 9 million pages for that exercise. So at community level, citizens can look at the register, tell us, are there ineligible persons on the register, persons who by virtue of age are not supposed to be on the register, or citizenship, or the deceased, or multiple registrants? Again, because of the Electoral Act 2022, we did something that was novel. We published the entire National Register of Voters on our website. And citizens had access to them, and you probably saw on the social media how they're picking up pictures of people all over and saying all manner of things on the social media. Now, the purpose of claims and objections is that people whose names have been misspelled or their personal details, or they have realized that there are some people that shouldn't be on the register, it was their responsibility to inform the commission. And there is a procedure for making these complaints. At the end of the exercise, over 53,000 names were nulled from the register as a result, essentially, of citizens' action. I want to say this, that the National Register of Voters in Nigeria is the largest database of citizens in Africa. And we believe that the core of it is solid. But like every database, it's not perfect. And we'll continue to work to improve on that database. One of the complaints we received arising from the claims and objections said that there were underage voters in 15 states, and they submitted an 138-page document. And personally, I took time to study the document, line by line, blow by blow. They identified 21,000 plus in eligible registrants in the 15 states. And so I asked them, is that all you have identified? He said, that's all that they have identified. But in the 15 states, there are 37 million registered voters. So the 21,000, in terms of percentage, comes to 0.06% of 37 million, meaning that 99.94% of the register is solid. So we'll continue to engage citizens on this. And as I said, once the backbone of the register is solid, then all we need to do is to continuously update. Some of you may be aware, as Nigerians, that with every general election until 2010, voters were asked to register afresh. But with the introduction of the biometric register in 2010-2011, we are only asking those who have come of age or did not register before to register. Not every Nigerian is called out to register. But as you can see, the number has been increasing from about 70 million in 2015 to 84 million in 2019 to 93 million for 2023. And who knows what the register of voters will be next election in 2027. So that voters must possess the voter's card, what we call the permanent voter's cards or the PVCs, to be able to vote. And following the cleaning up of the register, the cards for both have been collected in the last 1 month alone in Lagos. Lagos has the highest number of registered voters, but by the same token also the largest number of uncollected cards in the country. But probably now with what is happening, the largest number of collected cards in the country. And we have warned our staff, because we have had so many complaints in the field, bottlenecks having to do with sundry allegations of extortion by our own staff. We'll investigate and deal with it. Or inducement by some people, registered voters, induce the officials. Please, I don't want to waste my time hanging around. Take this, here is my temporary voter's card, here is my telephone number. As soon as my card is available, call me. This one is also illegal, and the commission is prepared to deal with it. And then we also had complaints about discriminatory issuance of PVCs in some locations. And these are allegations that we're also going to deal with. In fact, we have already issued a circular to all our state offices. The resident electoral commissioners should keep their eyes on these processes to ensure that every registered voter gets his or her card, but there'll be no collection by proxy. That's why we have moved away from distribution to collection. If we were to distribute, all the cards will go. In 1 week, all the cards will leave INEC office, but they may end up in the wrong hands. but we are putting the onus on the registered voter to collect his or her card. So the emphasis is not on distribution of cards, but on collection of cards. Next, I go to what many of you are interested in, I'm sure, hearing from the Commission, and that is on election technology. Now, in order to avoid the usual challenges with the application of new technologies, the Commission introduced and tested our innovations for election early enough. There are three critical components. The first one is the INEC voter enrollment device. It's called the IVED, for improved registration of voters. It's the same beavers, but when we register voters, there are peripherals we add. We add the fingerprint scanner and a thermal printer, so that we can register, take the fingerprints, and also print the temporary card. Then we have the INEC bimodal voter accreditation system for both voter accreditation and transmission of results for collation